Hey, how you doing? Justin here. Today we're going to be talking about creative use of the capo or capo. I still call it a capo. You can call it a capo if you like. Don't care. Now, the first thing that you need to understand before we get too much into this is the caged system. Okay, understanding that there are 5 different ways of playing every chord. So if we look at, for example, a G chord, we can play a G chord open. We can play a G chord using an E shape. We can play a G chord using a D shape. We can play a G chord using a C shape, or an A shape, or a G shape. This is pretty tricky up here. Okay, if you're not familiar with the cage system, you want to go and check out the caged system lessons on my website, because it's a pretty big deal understanding how those different chords connect together. But just as a little kind of rundown, the G shape, which is our open chord, has the root note on the thickest string. Okay. The other chord shape with the root note on the thicker string is the E shape, okay? And if you remember the mnemonic C-A-G-E-D, caged, after G, C-A-G-E comes E. There's the root note. After a G shape will come an E shape, okay? Now if we go back to our caged again, C-A-G-E-D. So the next one's a D shape. Now, I admit, I used to do it by ear a bit because I knew that there'd be like a D shape afterwards, so I used to go, and then I'd find it that way. But it's a lot easier to know where the root note is and know that for a D shape bar chord, and the root note is on the 4th string, okay? And therefore I can just put my chord down there at the, I'm finding the G note on the 4th string, which happens to be at the 5th fret, and I can put my D shape bar chord in front of it. So we've got the E shape, the D shape. After, in the caged system, after the D it goes back to C again. So caged back to C, we're looking for a C shape. You can do it by ear and cheek, but even better to know that the root note for a C shape bar chord is on the 5th string, and therefore it's going to be played with a little finger for a C shape. So that would be another way of playing a G chord using this C shape. After C in caged, C A. So we're after some sort of A shape. If you know that the root note is also on the 5th string for your A shape, that's the chord. That's how it's going to work. Okay, it's really important and a really good exercise for you to sit down and work out where every chord is played, all of the major chords, all over the guitar neck, seeing the way that the cage system links up, because really that's what you want to be doing with a capo when you're getting creative. And this is one of those things, capos can be used as a tool to get rid of bar chords so people can play along with a song in the original key. They can be used to change the key of the song so that if it's too high or too low, you can use a capo to make the chords higher or lower to fit your voice. But you can also use them creatively, there's obviously an open G chord. Now there are certain things that go along with using that shape. Those are nice kind of riffs that fit nicely with that shape. But those kind of riffs don't fit if we put the capo now at the 3rd fret and play an E shape. So it's still a G chord, but we're using the E shape. We've got these sort of things. Now, I'm going to note here as well, when you use a capo, you always tune up after you've put the capo on. So we're going to have a few tuning issues here because I'm not going to tune up after each capo placement. Putting it right next to the fret can help a little bit, but you can hear it's still a little bit ropey. So the advantage there is that there are certain little tricks that work with with this E shape that work better than the G shape. Or going that kind of thing, or that particular sus shape. Okay, that works. If we wanted to do a sus2, we can't, because the sus2 note is back there at the 2nd fret. Doesn't work. So maybe that wouldn't be the best one for the particular song I'm doing. I don't know. Who knows? We don't know what the song is. The next shape, that was E, C, A, G, E, D was the D shape, and that was the capo at the 5th fret. So if we got that down, we've got a D chord, okay? A D shape, it's still a G chord. Now the great thing about the D chord is, of course, those. Okay, you can muck around. There's all sorts of different things that are quirks to do with the D chord that you might want to put in your song. You know, if you really want that wouldn't really work in those other positions. But that, to get that little melodic riff, you know, it sounds really cool like this. And particularly when you get into guitar layering as well, that can be a really cool thing, to have one guitar doing the chords open and another guitar doing it with the capo on. So further up, you get particularly two acoustic guitars, panned slightly left or right, doing different chord grips of the same chords. Sounds wicked. Really, that's a fantastic thing. So the next grip up, so after C, A, G, E, D, we go back to C shape. So C shape was here. So the bar would have to be the 7th fret now. So if we just move that up there and play a C chord, okay, we've still got a G. It's still a G chord, but now we're using the C shape. Now we've got all sorts of interesting things that are particular to that C shape. Okay, there's lots of things. Again, every different chord grip has kind of little riffs and stuff associated with it that sound cool, that you don't get in the other ones. You know, different ways of approaching them, or the way that the different you know, suspended chords and add nines and all of that sort of stuff, they've got a different kind of quality. You know, the add nine here has a very different quality to any of the other different grips of the 9th chord. You know, there's something kind of cool about it that's worth being aware of and experimenting with, because that's what this lesson's about, experimenting with the capo. So that was using the C shape. The last one that we had was the A shape, C, A. That one, there's the root note there at on the 5th string for the note G. So this one, it's a little bit far up, and to be honest, I probably wouldn't end up experimenting with the capo being this high. I might do if I was in an extreme experimentation session. Don't really dig it that much up there. Just to play it, it feels a little bit uncomfortable. But again, you know, if you had somebody playing an open G chord on an acoustic and you were doing like, might sound really cool, might not, might do. You have to try it and see. The other really interesting thing that you get into when you do this is looking at the way the different chords kind of react with each other. Okay, because you can use, obviously when you've got a capo on, the open strings are capoed. So that's one of the things that I get really into a lot. For example, many of you will know this way of playing an A minor chord. It's a really interesting kind of an A minor grip using the open E string. So open 7th fret, 5th fret, open B string, open E string. Okay, it's kind of like an A minor 9, I guess. And if I was doing a G chord to an A minor, I might do that. But what gets really interesting is, what if I had the capo on and I was doing G, and then I've got to go to the A, but I can't really do it there. The top part sounds great, but where's the root note? Oh, there's the root note. See, and now it's kind of forced me into thinking about this other. That's a lovely chord. I love that. So instead of having that G to A, I've gone first step. Well, what about that other way of playing A? And then I've gone, well, let's just try the capo, just see what happens. So we've gone G, A. Okay, so there's lots of kind of creative things going on there. Maybe I'll try this one. I'll go, well, okay, we'll stay with that same progression of just G major to A minor. So G major first, well, that was the D chord. We did that already. Now, where's the A note? Okay, A note is already under the capo at the 5th fret. So that would mean that. So it's like an E minor shape would be the way to play an A minor chord with the capo at the 5th fret. So we're going to have D. And I'm just using a little quirk. It's just like a little thing that you can do on an E minor chord. Sliding that 3rd finger forward and then going back to the G. So already I've got now G to A minor open. I've got the G bar chord to that other funky A minor. I've got this D shape to an E minor using the little slide. That sounds pretty cool. What else have we got? So if we move it up to here, we got G chord like that with a C shape, and for the A, if we try and find an A around here, we've got an A on the 4th string, so it's a D minor shape. So maybe we'd have this G, I might experiment that way. Let's try the next one. Okay, if we put it up to the 10th fret where the G chord was the A shape, little crampy fingers one. Actually the A minor is not good here because it's kind of a bar chord. There's one way of doing it there. Actually that's quite interesting. To play G sus. This is an A minor, this is a 12, 10, 12, 13, 10. Kind of an A minor 7, A minor 11, I guess, would be the proper name of it. But it's just a sound. So I just wanted to share with you this idea of exploring a chord sequence, you know, by using a capo, taking the same chords or chord sequences. Generally better to do it in little chunks if you're new to this kind of thing. And you are going to find from time to time that some of the chords just don't work. So if you were doing, say, G chord to D chord, like that little, you know, very common chord sequence. If you put a capo on the 3rd fret, you'd need an E shape, but to get the D chord, it's here. You'd have to either play B7 if you wanted an open chord, which isn't the right chord, or you'd have to resort to a bar chord, or you'd have to find another creative way around it. Okay, so sometimes it'll force you into playing a few bar chords. Most times it gives you just a slightly different look, you know, and for writing songs and stuff, that's one of the things that I look for all the time, is a quirky way of playing the same thing. You know, we might have a song that sounds great, but it's just 2 chords, so I've got to try and find a way of approaching that sounds a little bit different. I don't want to do the same stuff that I've done 1,000 times before. I want to try and find something a bit more interesting. So experimenting with the capo is a great way of doing that, and I hope that sparks off a few ideas for you. I'll see you for plenty more lessons, Q&A, ideas, songs, and loads of other things that I don't even know might happen yet very soon. You take care of yourselves. Bye-bye.